Parashat Miketz 5785 Chag Chanukah Banu Choshech Legaresh Biyadenu Or Va'esh Kol Echad Hu Or Katan Vekulanu Or Eitan. Shall be zocher to learn that song, to understand that song. Banu Choshech Legaresh. We came to evacuate the darkness. How do we do it? Beyadenu Or Va'esh. We all have light, a personal light, a national light. Kol Echad Hu Or Katan. Each and every one of us have to be aware that we're a little light and recognize that we're not the full light on our own. Vekulanu Or Eitan. And all of us together are a strong light, obviously so essential on this Chanukah, so connected to this Chanukah. We want to ask a simple question: how to summarize everything about Chanukah, and also Parshat Miketz in 3 numbers: 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8 are very much the journey of all of life. Each of them have an inner spiritual context, and 6 is the representation of nature. As we know, all of us that are in love with Settlers, we're the older generation that was in love with Monopoly, all the games that are easier to set up and funner to play. We know that there's a die, and on the die there's a front and there's a back, there's a left and there's a right, there's an up and there's a down, which represents 6, which represents nature, which represents the need for all of us to very much be understanding that Hashem said, Sheshet Yamim Tavod. There's an idea of being a part of this world as a godly command, as a need to realize that the world is Hashem's conversation with us. That being said, where would you put 7? And the 7 is obviously the need to find the depth, the secret, the inside. And that's how we know the Aron in Beit HaMikdash was the only vessel that we didn't use on, right? The Mizbeach, the Korban was on, the Shulchan, the Lechem was on, the Menorah, the candles were on, the Aron, the Luchot were in, right? And the idea of the Luchot is that they reveal the 7th element that's always inside. That's why Shabbat, we still are a part of nature, but the goal of Shabbat is to find the inside of nature. And we could develop this more and more and more, that the idea of 7 is finding the secret inside, that what's going on underneath the surface, the idea of the basar and chalav, that basar represents 6, and what gives life is the milk, and that's always underneath the surface. Just like the soul of a person is inside, just like the heart of a person is inside, just like the roots of a tree are inside, the 7 is always something that is inside. And so once we know where 7 is, the next question is going to be, so where is 8? And the idea is that 8 is above. 8 is what's on top. 8 is not inside, it's what's beyond. And the idea of beyond are things that are going to be chosen by Hashem, given by Hashem, things that are greater than the world that we live in, because the inside is 7, so the 8 is above. If we go into Parshat Miketz, we'll see that there's a very clear idea of Egypt, which represents 6. Mitzrayim celebrate nature, and they want to make nature into the center, a little bit similar to the Greeks, that they want to see the 6 as perfect, that they are the God, and that there's nothing that they're willing to accept that is not perfect. Therefore, in Sparta, which was the celebration of Greece, if someone was born with anything imperfect, they would throw him into the ocean, and they felt that they were doing a favor, because the goal of man is to be perfect. And if a man is imperfect, you throw him into the ocean, you're doing him a favor. He doesn't have to go through struggle. We don't believe in imperfect, which is why also the Brit Milah bothered them, because the Brit Milah said that the first act you do as a person is recognize that you're not perfect. And you make a Brit recognizing that you were born with this idea that imperfect is the essence of man. So Mitzrayim and Yavan see nature as the end. We also believe in nature as the beginning, as the startup. And therefore Yosef, who is going to Mitzrayim, is looking at the dreams and trying to find the inner story, the 7. He's trying to bring back the ability to connect to the idea that there's something internal. That is Yosef, who is always connected to Hashem, to Dmiutu Kanoshel Aviv. He's always connected to the inner story. But then we have the leadership of someone named Yehuda, who's also Yehuda Maccabi, who's the leader who doesn't make any sense. He's not about finding the inner message of nature, but he's showing that no matter how deep you get, Hashem is greater than the world. And that's why in the name of Yehuda, there's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. The idea of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei in Yehuda is saying that he's going to reveal that there are things in the world that don't make sense, things that are beyond man's knowledge, things that are beyond what's going on in the world that we live in. And that's Yehuda. And that is the concept of Chanukah, going from the menorah of 7 to 8. That the menorah at the beginning had 7, but now that we've conquered the Greek, we realized that really what we have to show the world is, as much as you want to show that there's an inner world, there's also something eternal. And the eternals, if you realize that there's 8. Shmone is Shemen. The Shemen of the menorah is teaching us the 8 days of Chanukah. The 8 days of Chanukah reminding us that there's something called beyond. The miracles that we celebrate on Chanukah are the miracle of realizing that we never ever let go of the option of things going outside of the realm of logic. And this was taught by Rav Avishai. I forgot the last name, great Shalech in Toronto, that he said that the Sfat Emet teaches that the greatest miracle of Chanukah was that it says that they entered the Mikdash upinu et heichalecha. What does that mean? They walked in, it was disgusting. It was atrocious. Pigs coming out of Kodesh Kodashim. So someone who only believes in 6 or 7, you give up. You go to sleep, you lie down, you cry. They didn't. V'pinu et heichalecha. They tried. V'tiyeru et mikdashecha. And they kept looking for pure. And that act of looking was the greatest miracle. That they did not let go of the option of 8. That they believed that there's something called beyond. There's something called above. Just like you pour the oil on the water is something that reveals what's going on inside. You pour water onto a seed, it shows the inner potential. But you pour oil onto water, it goes above it. And that was the greatest miracle of Chanukah, that we believed in 8. That we believe that there are things that don't work in the realm of nature, that there's something beyond nature, something bigger than nature. Shall be Zoch in the generation that we're in. We see so clearly that we need us to keep bringing in the inner message, like Yosef taught us, like the water teaches us, like the bor ve'ein bo mayim, and the mayim was Yosef. That is one thing that we need to do, but also not to get so wrapped up in ourselves, and to realize that there are things that are beyond logic, and to realize that Syria, one of the greatest armies in the world, can be evaporated in 4 days. It could be. And the idea of that 8 enables us that when things make sense to go to sleep, to lie down, to give up, that we could continue. Shabbat Shalom from Moreno Rabbeinu Oritan. Shabbat Shalom from Moreno Rabbeinu Rav Adiel. Shabbat Shalom from Rabbanit Roni. We shall all be Zocha Be'ezrat Hashem to know the ideas of 6, 7, and 8 in Parashat Miketz and Chanukah, and that it will help us, Be'ezrat Hashem, win this war and learn from this war and become warriors, not only in war, but in everything that we do it instead of good, that we start to do it great.